Y'all know what it is. Another episode of Fourth and Fantasy. My name is Hancho, and this is my guy.
Siriaco, call me Rocco. Let's go.
Let's go. Happy Sunday, y'all. Hope you're doing well wherever you're viewing us at, whatever time of the day it is. Hope it's going well and dandy. What do we have for the people today, Rocco? It's been a busy week for us, especially for you. You've been on the
Real
road, you've been
busy.
traveling, man. What's up?
I've been in Chattanooga on a work trip. Um, it's pretty cool. They got a lookout mountain. You can look out and see seven states from the top of a mountain. They have Ruby Falls, which is pretty cool. It's an underground cave that leads to an underground waterfall. Real beautiful sights. But I'm glad to be back in NOLA, man. It's been a long ass week.
Long week. I can tell you that I remember, especially at work myself. It has been whooping my ass. But we're back at it with another episode. And before we even get started, subscribe, share, like, all that wonderful stuff. It really does help out us, the platform. We've been doing our thing on YouTube. We've been doing our thing on Blue Sky. We've been doing our thing on Twitter. And actually, we just hit over 950 subscribers on YouTube. Once again, thank you all for tapping in with Fourth and Fantasy, me and Rocco, and the rest of the Fourth and Fantasy fam. Really appreciate y'all. It doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you all and all the wonderful discussions that we're able to have, whether it's on Blue Sky or Twitter. Morocco, let's go over what we have for the people today, man. With I think where we were, I've been working on me myself finishing out my wide receiver rankings. I'm doing 34. I looked over well over 50 prospects at this point, but looking at, and this is whether it's FBS, FCS. These are just guys all around college football who I think
hmm
can be ballers, and almost now got three more guys to finish out my rankings, and then I will be moving on to the running backs. I've already scouted a few, but haven't got my rankings actually on paper yet. But that's on the way. How you been, Phil? Let's actually on that note, because I know you wanted to talk about him, and he's actually on my wide receiver ranking. So I think it would be a good transition to talk about Ricky White,
Hell
one of
yeah.
the more underrated guys who he's not in the top when you think of these wide receiver prospects in the 2025 draft. He's not in your first, top 10 of guys off the top of your head to, that comes to mind of, players. But when I was going through my personal observations, he was a guy that I was like, damn, this guy can ball. And then you go back and you look at the combine and you're like, he ran a 4.61. Let me check his tape to see if this is a 4.61 type of guy. And I didn't see that. And then before we even hopped on started doing the episode, you were telling me that he actually ran better at his pro day. Tell us some more about Ricky White, and I'll chime in a little bit from where I saw him on my ranks.
Yeah, he actually ran a speed adjusted 4.49 at his 40 day, which is plenty fast enough. I mean, you could speak to what you saw on tape as far as his receiving, but what I liked is that he actually played special teams. I seen him making tackles on special teams. I seen him block a punt on special teams, and that's going to get him to the active game roster, even if he's a day three pick, which it looks like he may be, unless somebody falls in love. But some of the stats that stood out to me for Ricky White, seventh in the nation amongst qualifiers, with 23 missed forced tackles, fifth in yards per route run at 2.93. He had a 96% dominator rating, which collects his stats compared to the rest of his team, and 100% college target share, and a 96 percentile breakout age. So he's been dominating at his school since he's basically got there. Um, and you know, all of the analytics look great on him. His athleticism doesn't look great. According to Player Profiler, his best comparable is Mario Manningham, and we, you know, obviously want to see a better comparison for him. But for a guy that you may be able to get in fourth round of rookie drafts, I think he's a worthy stash.
Yeah, when I was viewing Ricky White, and if you go back and don't look at 2024, actually go back and look at 2023, where he had a bigger year. He went for 88 catches on 135 targets, 1,487 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He actually had a 90.6 receiving grade on PFF for the 2023 year. He plays majority on the outside, which I very much appreciate. I do like. In 2004, he played a little bit more in the slot, but one of the things and that we saw in 2023 was he had a 6.6 yards after catch per reception. Really good for a guy his size. And then he had a 3.83 yards per routes run, and then a ADOT of 12.4. I think one of the coolest things about Ricky White is that he went in 2023 for 54 first downs. That is really good. And no, then you go back, look at the tape on 2024. Yes, did the numbers regress a little bit? Yes, when it comes to just the little bit of less catches. He also had like 300 less yards. But one thing that I did notice that he still caught over 60% of his passes coming out, right? So one thing I do like about Ricky White is that I think he'll need to bulk up a little bit for the NFL, and his routes, he can get bumped off a little bit just because of him being, you know, they say he's like 190, but I say he plays more on the 187, like 186 range. So I
Mm-hmm.
think he will need to bulk up to increase his play strength. But one thing that when you go and you look at the depths that he really had success at in 2023, he posted a 97 receiving grade in the medium, so that's 10 to 19 yards. 97.6. He, you know, had 25 first downs in that range. And then what I also thought was pretty impressive was that he posted a 99.7 receiving grade for deep routes. Mind you, he had 26, targets in that deep end. He caught 11 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, and then contested catches, he had 50%. So he caught 50% of those downfield. What I can appreciate about Ricky White, one of the things I don't want to put too much on him, and even though his birthday is one day before mine, shout out to you, my Aquarius brother. I don't want to put too much of this on him, but he kind of, looking at his playbook, reminded me of a little bit of Stephon Diggs coming out of Maryland. You know, of of that intermediate work that he does, and he's one thing you think he wouldn't be able to, have the yak or produce the yak that he does for his size, but he's actually very pretty agile in that realm. I think
Mm-hmm.
once again he'll have to increase his play strength to be able to fight off press coverage a little bit more. Once you get if you can get your hands on him, that's where he runs into some trouble. But I like me some Ricky White. He is my let me go. Ricky White is my wide receiver 12 in this class, and that would put him in tier three along guys like Kyle Williams, who I really like, Tez Johnson, Jack Betch, and my personal favorite, who I think y'all would very much learn to. I think he actually will have a pretty good NFL. He will be a better pro, and he would have a pretty good college career, even though he was playing lower competition. But we've seen a prospect from this exact college come into the NFL and produce Cooper Cup. But Efton Chisholm, the third, he's in that same realm of guys, and
Mm-hmm.
so I really do like Ricky White. And let's say he goes to a team like the Minnesota Vikings. I think he that would be so much fun with him, Jordan Addison, and Justin Jefferson, and whether he could. They already have Justin Jefferson. He plays in and out. They have Jordan Addison, who majority plays on the outside. But I think Ricky White can play. He can give you a little bit of both. He can give you. He's capable of playing on the inside if you need him. He probably on that offense, and then he also has the capability of playing out wide that we saw in college, which gives Justin Jefferson more leeway to be that slot king that we know he is. So
The
I would
rich
love
get
to see
richer. Huh?
Ricky White. Yeah, I would love to see Ricky White on the Minnesota Vikings, and he is one of those day three receivers. He could, yeah, I know. I'd say he's more of a day three. There's a couple guys I think would go. Like Kyle Williams, once again, how I do my rankings, just want to throw FYI. It draft capital has a little bit to go into it, but that's the lowest of the way I grade these guys. I look at one, the analytics, and I look at film. Film being the top thing, but also going back and looking at the analytics and how they play into what I see when I look at them play. So that's how I came at Ricky White at my wide receiver 12.
I can dig it. I like him. I like what I've seen.
Now, Rocco, it's been a busy. We're getting to that almost. It's almost April time. The NFL draft is at the end of April. Real NFL free agency. I don't think has started yet. I have to look at the timeline, but
Real, yeah, it started.
and then okay. I was still. I know there's.
It
I don't
started
know.
about a week after legal tampering,
Okay, so you just
which
been quiet like a
doesn't.
mouse. All right, cool.
Yeah. Nothing much is happening. You'll see a move here, a move there. Um, one of the interesting rumors is the Chargers getting the band back together. They've already signed Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen just recently posted on Mike Williams' Instagram talking about getting the band back together. So
I
that
saw
that
that.
would be interesting.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to get those guys back together. They obviously had a lot more success in San Diego or Los Angeles. Wherever that team is these days, they've had a lot more success there than they've had anywhere else. So I would I would be interested to see that. I mean, I would still like for them to probably draft a guy, but that would be interesting to get those guys back together just to give uh, Justin Herbert as many weapons as possible because last year it was Lad and that was about it.
No, I am one of those people that say that Keenan Allen should have never ever played in another uniform other than the Chargers. I think he should have been a long time Charger, but I think it would be a great for them to have Lad McConkey, Keenan Allen, whatever you think Mike Williams has left, and then
Second year off of ACL.
if you think he's I think he's kind of washed at this point,
I think
but.
he could be a good third or fourth option. He definitely, I don't know, I trust him to catch the ball more than my guy Quentin Johnson.
And I was just going to say, you do still have Quentin Johnson, and that kind of throws it into like, like what do you do with him if you bring in Keenan Allen? First off, you still got if you have Lad who has played outside, inside, so and then you have Keenan Allen who also would be an inside, outside guy. You have Mike Williams who's an outside guy, and then you have Quentin Johnson who's an outside guy. Sure, your wide receiver. If you do, your wide receiver sets of four, that would probably be a formidable wide receiver group. I wouldn't mind Keenan Allen going back. I think he still has plenty of juice left. I think when we're talking about his play style, it ages well in this
Hmm.
modern day where he never used his athleticism to win in the NFL. It was always his IQ, his route savviness, his tempo, and how he sets it up and beats DBs. So I would like Keenan Allen to go back to the Chargers, and I think that would be really good for Justin Herbert and
Uh,
other.
uh,
Go ahead.
as dusty as Keenan Allen was, he was still out producing Rome Dunze, and he was taking some love from my guy DJ Moore. So
So he's putting on some crazy routes.
I think you're exactly right. His game is not based on speed. It's based on route technician, being a route technician and route savvy, and being able to set up his opponents.
Mhm.
So I think he could play as long as he wants to, as long as he can, remain physically healthy. I think he would be a great addition to the Chargers. Mike Williams, we'll see. I mean, it's the second year off of a major injury.
Oh,
If he comes back and provides that downfield threat
he should.
situationally, I mean
Oh, yeah.
he'll never get back to being 100 target guy, but I think he could be an excellent number four that can provide some big moments when needed.
That man needs his cook. Whatever his legs, whatever and that's kind of that's my one. I don't when I talk about the bigger wide receivers, I don't have any bias towards them. I still think wide
I I,
receivers,
I, I do a little bit.
I think big wide receivers can still produce. Mike Williams, but with Mike Williams, his game was never like towards. If I got to think of a guy like if you like Mike Evans, if you want to, I think Mike
He
Evans,
was a jump ball specialist
right?
is the
He doesn't
problem.
have.
He had that 1 year where he was allowed to run kind of different routes, and he had a career year. I think that was in 22. But that's the only year we've seen that. Every other year of his career, he's essentially been a jump ball specialist, and like you said, they don't age well.
Yeah, I don't think he had the good enough feet to be able to. His game was never going to age well. So, and then you start throwing in the injuries, which taps away from your explosiveness and being a jump ball guy because you start being able to actually jump
Hmm.
and you start being slow. Now you're fucked. That's why I'm not very much high on Mike Williams. But getting the band back together, having nostalgia, fuck it. West 2025, whatever you can do to get Justin Herbert some, wide receivers around
Get,
him. I'm not too
get
mad
him
at.
something. I don't want him to have to trust Quentin Johnson, on important downs, because Quentin Johnson has showed us over and over again he's not up to the task. Let him play, in unimportant situations, because if it's a catch that's needed to keep a drive going to extend the game, he's probably going to put it on the ground.
I kind of disagree with that one. Quentin Johnson, this is not a slight, no stray towards you, my boy, but we've been
It kind
waiting.
of
I mean,
is.
it's what going on to year three. Is this year three we're going into in his career?
Year three.
Just that's a very big year in a young wide receiver's career to see where you develop, and hopefully he can put it all together because he has the size to do it. But first, you gotta use them hands, unless get the fuck out. Now, that being said, There was other news in the NFL that could dictate what they do in the NFL draft. But since our last episode, we've seen the New York Giants sign Russell Wilson to a deal that could be worth up to 21 million, and he's been talking that he believes that he will be the starter in New York. And then they also went out and signed our guy, our boy, Jameis Winston, who I think very much is a capable backup, but I don't think he signed there to be the QB3. So, what I think, hear me out, Rocco. I do think this might, and they could prove me wrong. I think this does take them out of a QB early. I think this puts them more into the Travis Hunter area if they really do love him, right? Now, I still think they could end up taking, because once again, Russell Wilson, old as spot. Jameis Winston, not old as spot, but old. Not no spring chicken. These are guys that these are bridge player type of players, guys, right? I could still see them going after, maybe depends on where Jackson Dart goes, but I could still them going that direction.
Hmm.
Maybe they like themselves a McCord from Syracuse. Maybe they like themselves a, what's the other quarterback? That's
Tyler
Tyler.
Show.
Yeah, Tyler. Yeah, that boy. So maybe they like him. Maybe they could even throw this in there as a developmental guy. They could even like Milrow and what he's able to do. Then you start getting to guys like that. They don't have to come in immediately to be the starter. They can develop, they can learn behind guys that have been doing it. Whether you believe Jameis Winston is a good quarterback or not, that boy knows how to fling a football. Whether it's a touchdown or interception, he knows how to fling that motherfucker. So, and then Russell Wilson, I still think has one of the better deep balls in the NFL. And then I think when it comes to being a processor of it, he's still one of the guys that are able to pre-snap wise. I think he's one of the better minds wise, um, but I still think the New York Giants will draft a quarterback. I just don't think they would draft one early. But what do you think?
I think they signed Russell Wilson because everybody's job is on the line in New York. So I don't think realistically they could have trusted in a rookie quarterback this year. I was kind of happy when they signed Jameis Winston because, in my mind, I'm seeing 2,000 yards for Malik Neighbors. In my mind's eye, I'm just seeing Malik Neighbors having like the best wide receiver season in the league this year.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they signed Russell Wilson, I was like more I don't see the same type of numbers. I think I see a more conservative offense that relies on play action passes in the running game, and to that thought, I think they're gonna draft a defensive type player. I think they're kind of hoping that Abdul Carter slips to them, and I think they would pounce on him. And if not that, they could go offensive line. They probably should trade back just because in this spot in the draft, if they're not getting Abdul Carter or maybe even a Travis Hunter, I think they can get the same type of player at 10 that they can get at 3. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when Russell Wilson came in, that pretty much put the kibosh on Jameis Winston starting this year, unless Wilson gets hurt. So yeah, we're not gonna see those explosions with my man Krabby Winston,
Yeah,
and like I said before, the team, basically the coach, the front office, everybody gets fired if that team shits the bed again this year. So
go on.
and with that in mind, there's no way Winston starts many games this year because while he is fun, he is not a winning quarterback and never has been. And if he's out there, it's just for It's just for the fun, and it's not for the wins. So
Mm.
it's gonna be boring. Russell Wilson to me sounds boring. It sounds like a boring offense with guys
It's
just
better.
trying to hold on to their job.
Hear me out though. It's better than what they had. If Russell Wilson is a lot better than what they had last year, though. Like if Malik Neighbors had a Russell Wilson last year, I still think Malik Neighbors has a better year than what he had, regardless.
Mm, I don't know when your team sucks. Even if you got shitty quarterbacks, they're gonna just throw to him, and he's gonna get all the YOLO balls. And I think he still had what did he have? About 150 targets.
Yeah,
So
and
it wasn't for a lack of targets.
60 of them were from 70 of them bitches were some bad where he had to put his body on the line. I'm not saying that
100% of them were, were bad targets,
not
but
all
if they were fun,
not all targets are good targets.
all
uh,
targets, man.
uh,
Give me 200 targets with Jameis Winston. Let's go.
you know what I'm saying? But in relation to Tyler Shook, there's been sources that are saying that put him in the likes of when they're talking about who will have the most success early. Some put
Hmm.
him in that category next to Cam Ward, which I'm like. There's some actually believe, or there's been whispers. Let's say the Steelers or the Seahawks that he could go in the first round, which I would be surprised at. But
I'll see.
I think he's more of that round two. There's been more talks of like him going in that area with the Cleveland Browns. Once again, the New York Giants being one of those, and then the Las Vegas Raiders looking at him at the top of round two. That's where
Hmm.
I think the sweet spot for Tyler Should could go if they don't. Because once again, I don't think New York goes a quarterback now early, but that early second that could be different.
Yeah, but he's almost as old as Russell Wilson. I think
Oh
he's like
shit!
20,
I'm not gonna lie to you.
26 years old.
I think he'll be he's 25 now. He'll be 26 throughout the season. Yeah, but I mean he's not the oldest
both both of
prospect.
them could sit in the locker room and talk about Golden Girl reruns.
But if you think about it though, they could move off of Russell Wilson in a year. That he could easily be gone next year, which means Tyler Should could be your starter quarterback in
Hmm.
2026. Does that? I mean, I haven't got to my quarterbacks yet to really. I've seen a couple glimpses of him as he plays once again. It's Tyler Should. He's if when you're looking at a couple of guys like Ja'Cory Brooks. That's
Hmm.
when I was looking at his film, that's his quarterback who was throwing him the ball. And once again, Ja'Cory Brooks is on my wide receiver list. I did top 34. He is on there. And once again, who was getting him the ball? Tyler Shook. So it's hard to miss him as the balls that he was getting thrown. Nevertheless, we'll see. I do think Tyler Shook goes before round three, most likely
I'll
in that
tell
round with guys.
I'll tell you the great thing about Russell Wilson getting signed to the New York Football Giants is that he beat Aaron Rodgers to a contract, which is just fantastic.
Hmm.
Which is just fucking fantastic. Get out the league, Aaron Rodgers. Nobody wants to play with you.
I think Aaron Rodgers kind of just taking his lovely time at this point. He could have been signed with the
Yeah,
Steelers. I don't think, and maybe he's waiting for the Vikings to. I think that's one thing I keep hearing about that.
it's
That's his
not
top
happening. If
spot.
it was happening, it would have happened already.
I could see that as well. And then there've been other names floating around for the Minnesota Vikings, like a Ryan Tannehill, of all
I think Ryan
people.
Tannehill already signed with them as a backup. I think.
Did he?
Yeah, I thought that happened
I
already.
just heard news. I just heard rumors. So
Yeah,
uh,
he could sit around and wait for the right opportunity like Ryan Tannehill did all last year.
I think he could be better. Aaron, just go ahead, sign with the Steelers. You now have George Pickens, and then you go ahead and get a DK. You have a Pat Fryermuth, and then you'll end up having Jalen Warren, and then whatever running back they take in the draft. That's a good offense, and
I tell you, the only upside to that is that if he goes to Pittsburgh, then Arthur Smith won't be the offensive coordinator anymore. Aaron Rodgers will be. So that may
mm,
be an upgrade, a slight
I
upgrade.
say fuck Arthur Smith. Let's get. I know that was he had nothing to do with our topic, but he deserved a stray right there. So I would say it again. Fuck Arthur Smith. Yeah, I think with Russell and the New York Giants, they'll probably be a New York Giant led team by Russell Wilson would be probably last. And I'm not going to put us behind the New York Giants whatsoever. So I still think you got the Philadelphia Eagles as the number one team. You got the two Washington Commanders. Had to put my Dallas Cowboys as the three at the moment, and then for the New York Giant led Russell Wilson for that. And that's how that goes. I don't think it's going to get better from there. But now, that being said, I haven't made a lot of trades. Have you made a lot of trades since in these last month? It's starting to get. I think the closer we get to draft, the more that people are looking at these, and then you get more testing. You get these pro days, and then you know, and then the closest we get to the NFL draft, and then after that, depending on when your rookie draft is, people are
I,
very much coming for these draft spots.
I'll tell you what, man. I've made more trades in the last 2 weeks
Yeah.
than I've made in the entire offseason. I probably made about 3 or 4 trades up until the last 2 weeks, and in the last 2 weeks, I don't know what it is. It's people are starting to pay attention a little bit more. I think some people take a couple months off after the season. Um, you know, commissioners start coming to look for league money,
Mm.
which also wakes people up. And right around this time is a good time to start putting those auto accepts up, which I did for basically every league. Um, I probably put people up just a hair cheaper than you would see on like a keep trade cut. But these trades are made. These lists are made to make moves happen. So,
Mm.
I would put up like a Tank Dell for any year third. I did Tyrone Tracy for a mid 25 second
I'm not mad at that.
because I'm just gonna re-roll with him.
Mm.
I'm gonna take the profit of a fourth round pick last year and re-roll. Um, things like that. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys I've done. But basically, that's the idea. You're pricing these guys to move them off your team because eventually you're going to have to cut down after the draft. And some of these guys, I mean, they might not be the ones that are cut, but some of the guys that you like as sleepers, you'll have to cut. So I
Bruh,
try
who
to
you
move the
telling?
guys with a little bit of value,
Mm.
get them off the team, pick up draft picks, and that's why, if you look at my teams, I got, numerous thirds and fourths and 25 and 26, which I can use to, grease a trade later on. I don't necessarily have to make those picks, but I'm just kind of adding to
Mm.
my treasure chest of picks. And I also decided to rebuild the team because looking at that team that I decided to rebuild,
Yep.
boy, I had some dusty fucking assets on that team, and I had to make a move. A lot of those guys, their value would go to zero sooner than later.
So in 2025, you decided that you didn't, or you recognized that you didn't have no chance of competing for a title. So you're like,
No,
so
I think I finished fifth last year. But let me go ahead and share my screen. I'll
with
just
that
kind
being
of.
said, with your rebuild, do you think it'll be a year around rebuild, 2 year round rebuild? Like, how do you, like, how? quickly do you think you'll be able to get this to a
If I
playoff?
if I hit on 25 picks, I can compete this year.
Okay,
Like
that's always good.
I don't ever look at a long term rebuild unless the whole team shit. This team has good pieces. It's just a very deep lineup setting, and a lot of my flexes, wide receiver three, um, play my depth was shit.
Mm,
All old guys. So I just basically converted all those old guys into either younger players, draft picks, 26 draft picks. So, all I need to do is hit on a couple of my 25 picks,
mm,
and I can easily convert some of these pieces into usable pieces in 2025, where I'll have an idea of who's playing well. I'll have, I'll have a few, I have a month, 6 weeks to kind of gauge on who I can go after that can help me win in 2025. But what I saw was a team that was getting old and a team that would have limited assets because, you know, this team, previously I'd kind of gone all in and traded some picks to
mm.
kind of try to compete in 2024. It didn't happen for me. So now I'm kind of getting rid of all of the fat and I'm reloading so that I can, if I can't compete in 2025, I'll be set up really nicely in 2026. So I have options with this team now,
Okay.
whereas before I'd have to hope for injury luck. I'd have to hope that old guys would perform, unlike they've done, in 2024.
Yeah.
And I can kind of show you, um, maybe it might be a little bit easier to visualize what I had because I have the 2024 team pulled up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go ahead and let's see. I think this is the one. All right. So, can you see that?
Yes, sir. What's up?
There we go. All right. So, my keepers were Jalen Hurts. Why did I do that? Let's do that again. So the guys that I'm going to keep are Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Brock Bowers, and I think that's about it. Damn. Yeah, this team kind of sucks. So I had Najee Harris, who, he landed in a good situation, but he's on a 1 year deal. So, and they still can draft somebody. So like we said before, I don't trust any of the 2025 uh, vet running backs that aren't super elite.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrone Tracy, we just talked about. Debo Samuel, enough said. Dusty as hell. Cooper Cup, dusty. Jacoby Myers, he had a good year, so he had some value, but I mean, he's going to be 28 years old. Josh
Right.
Jacobs had a great year, but he's also getting a little bit older, and he can bring in a guy, Ramondre Stevenson. So you can kind of see, and I have Fields on the bench, but you can see just straight trash on the bench. There's not much startable anywhere to be found, on my bench squad. I kind of
Yeah.
like Tyler Conklin and Brenton Strange.
I mean, you got
Uh,
Jalen Waddle on your bench.
oh, there he is. Yeah, I do. So yeah, he was another guy I was keeping just because he's young and he's had good seasons. I missed him,
You got some
and
underrated guys. Tyler Conklin signed into the Chargers. Could be underrated signing.
yeah, he's a guy that I also kept. But all I had as far as draft picks, I didn't have my first. I had the 2.1, which is a premium pick, but mid third, mid fourth. And so you see, I didn't have great pick equity on this team.
Yeah.
So let me go stop that share and I'll go to where I'm at now.
I will say the only trade I made in the last I go week has
Hmm.
to secure a top guy, a top wide receiver. I traded for, or and this trade was actually sent to me for AJ Brown. and I gave up Chris Godwin, Derrick Henry, and Brenton Strange.
Smash. Smash. So this was the. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So this was the first trade I made in the offseason. You know I love me some J.J. McCarthy, but I traded J.J. McCarthy and Debo Samuel, which I don't have much faith in Debo Samuel doing much. And in return, I got Lad McConkey in a 26th third.
Okay.
So the thought process here was, like I said, I love me some JJ, but I have a shitload of JJ, so I can afford to give away one share while picking up what, in my estimation, is a top 10 wide receiver in a great situation. So,
Ruby.
with this trade, I improved my wide receiver room. Let's see. Let me get to trade complete. Here we go. So this is where I moved Najee Harris, and in return, I got the 2.7 and a 26 fourth. The
That's
26
good.
fourth was just an add-in, but those picks help when you're trying to make trades and you're trying to even out trades.
That's a good one.
So
I'm gonna pay
I got a mid second, so that could be an Ollie Gordon, that can be a DJ Giddens,
a mid
guys
second.
that
That's not bad
mid
for
second,
not.
mid second,
I
mid
can't lie.
second. Let's see. So let's see. And sorry guys, we're just gonna go through it until we see some trades completed. We're just gonna kind of waste some
That
time
boy.
here.
One thing I can say, that boy Rocco be sending them out, don't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I counter and counter and counter. I don't spend a lot of time bullshitting. I just counter till we find something we can agree on. Here I got for Cooper Cup I got 25 late third, and I got Keyshawn Butte. So I got a prospect that played good last year, and I got a late third. So I was able to get off the dusty Cooper Cup, who he may come back
Hmm.
or he may not. So
Yeah.
we're kind of running short on time. Let me just kind of show you how this team ended up. Let's see. Unless we could talk
Oh,
about
hold
this
on. Okay, hold
big
on.
one right
All
here.
right, all right, all right. Let's see. You ended up getting Brees Hall and
Mm-hmm.
Michael Mayer, and you
Mm-hmm.
gave away Josh Jacobs and Justin Fields. Oh,
Yeah.
that
What I think is that um, Brees Hall, I still have a lot of faith in that he can be, one of the better running backs, whether it's with the Jets or another team. Justin Fields, he could be a 1 year type of guy. That's what his contract says. And Josh Jacobs, I mean, he's taken up a lot of punishment over the years. So I don't know if I have the confidence in him holding up, long term. What are your thoughts about that one?
I think Justin Jefferson can. Sorry, not Justin Jefferson. Justin Fields is can play with being a top five quarterback in fantasy this year. Or top. Okay, maybe I'm being a little. I'm being fuck that. I'm gonna say top eight. I think Justin Fields has the potential to be a top eight quarterback in fantasy. Let me just throw that in fantasy before people get on my ass. In fantasy, not in the NFL, in real life, in reality, but in fantasy, Justin
Mm-hmm,
Fields
mm-hmm.
can be a top eight. And but I think where Brees Hall, that kind of gives me a good feel of where people are at with Brees Hall, and maybe people are. He used to be top three. To get Brees Hall, that used to be two first rounders off bat.
Yeah.
So I think that's not a bad trade on your end, and could end up being pretty worthwhile for you if Brees. I think Justin Fields will be a really good piece for Brees Hall, and we'll see. Brees Hall return to that top five, top three
Mm-hmm.
realm that he has been previously before.
All right. So this is we're gonna kind of wrap this up here. This is what my team ended up looking like.
Hmm.
Jalen Hurts, I still haven't gotten the picks I'm looking for Ramondre, but I'm gonna keep on looking. Reese Hall, and I got Jalen Waddle, Lad McConkey, Kayshawn Butte, yep, Brock Bowers, Vele, Goddard, Strange, and Love. So this is definitely what's looking like a rebuild type of team. You know, outside of my top pieces. Let's see, but what I do have is I have a lot more pick equity now. As you can see, I got 6 picks in this draft, and I got numerous picks in the 2026 draft. So, like I said, I'll keep tweaking this team, and worst comes to worst, if I start losing a lot of games early in the season, I could very easily just go for the 101 in 2026.
Mhm.
So it gives me a lot of options now. So basically, if I hit on my picks, I can compete this year, I believe. With some trades and some younger players, and if not, I have the ability to pivot and go for a high pick in 2026.
Hell yeah. I always appreciate a good rebuild. There's not many. First off, most of the rebuilds I do get, because it's not many teams that I draft that I have to do a rebuild after the first season. Even though I'm very much a go in or an all in type of
Mm-hmm.
fantasy player. It's more majority of the times the teams that I am rebuilding on are teams that I've had to take over. Because once again,
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love a good rebuild project. I think it even feels better than the leagues that you drafted and you end up
Mm-hmm.
winning, just because you had to bring that shit out the muck, out the gutter, out the trenches to the Holy
Yeah.
Land. There's a whole different other feel to that. So being able to one, you have to, and this is I've ran into this in a one league where the person they took over a rebuild underestimated how big the rebuild was and ended up flaking after only having a team for a year. So now we're looking for another person
A
in two
secondary
years,
rebuild, huh?
to do a second rebuild on trades that the other person already fucked. So you basically the person took over the team, fucked the team even more,
Mm-hmm.
and then now you gotta look for another person. You have to in order to have a successful rebuild. One, you have to assess the team correctly. Two, you have to look at some of your pieces, and sometimes you're not going to be able to get a first. You're not going to be able to get that type of premium value unless you have those type of players on your team. Now you got to figure out strategically. One, you got to dive. You have to be dive deeper into your bag in your prospect evaluation in these
Mm-hmm.
rookie
Mm-hmm.
drafts. Now, because it'll be easier for you to acquire second and thirds. Now you need to do your in-depth evaluations on guys in that area, and to be able to, in a way, fill out your team in the best way possible. Because it's going to be once again some rebuilds. Some teams are just fucked. You're not going to be able to
Yeah.
do it. It's just bad. So
What I will say is this is a good year to rebuild with some of those later picks because of the depth of the draft. So,
yep.
whereas last year it was top heavy, this year it's flat all the way through. You can even find guys that are going to land on teams and have roles outside of the top 4 rounds. So that's
Yep.
why I say if you feel like a rebuild is needed, no better year than this year because you won't find a draft as deep as this one.
And before we go, once again, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Fourth and Fantasy. We love every single one of y'all. Before we go to Rocco's point, I one of the things that I've noticed that I'm going to be having trouble with is are my taxi spots, because there are going to be a number of guys that are going to be on waiver wires, especially in leagues where we only have 3 rounds worth of rookie spots or rookie picks. that are going to be on the waiver wire that I am going to want on my taxi teams. A lot of the taxis, a lot of the guys that I have on my taxi spots from previous year, the last year, are probably going to be out the way because there's of what Rocco said in that later rounds. I feel a lot better about those guys this year than last. But that being said, okay, sorry, go ahead before we go.
No, I was
One
gonna
last,
say another sneaky thing you can do is if you need just a little bit more added into a trade to make you feel good about it. Um, you could also ask for some fab
I was
dollars,
gonna fucking say that. Don't do
especially
that. Hell yeah, don't.
especially especially in drafts where it's only 3 rounds, because essentially you'll still have a round and a half of solid guys that can produce for you. So if you can get ahead of your league and have more fab than they do, you'll be able to pluck those guys that didn't get drafted, because in a lot of leagues they had a lot of really nice players that were available in a less deep draft in 2024, where I was getting, a Tyrone Tracy, off of waivers, Isaac Arendo off of waivers, a Braylon Allen off of waivers. So if you have a little bit extra money in your bank account because you've prepared for this possibility, you'll be ahead of your league.
Get that five, baby. Get that five. Get that 25. Throw 50 in that bitch. Throw whatever. Because yes, most leagues they reset the fab from the off season and then reset it when the regular season starts. You're gonna run out of that bitch quicker than you think. And then there's certain people who really like a prospect. Throw 70 on their ass. That's literally how it happens. So once again,
I always go into the season with no fab.
go get that fab, baby. But that's been this episode of Force and Fantasy. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hope your Sunday is wonderful for the rest of the day, wherever time it is, wherever you're at. Go enjoy the rest of the day. Rocco, my G, take care. As
Like,
always,
share, and subscribe. We are almost to 1K. If you're along for the journey, hit that button, and ride with us and get us to 1K, and we will greatly appreciate it. And we'll keep knocking out this content.
fuck yeah. That being said, we're gonna end it at that. Can't end it on anything better except for that. Rocco, my G, be good. Y'all be good. Till next time. This is Sports and Fantasy.